Hello, and welcome to the Scott Mize Show, a podcast focused on health, diet, bodybuilding, and philosophy. I interview experts, doctors, coaches, and N=1 case studies to answer your questions about improving health, achieving your best physique, and making sustainable progress. We'll cover topics from carnivore and ketogenic diets to bodybuilding to life philosophy and everything in between. Enjoy the show. Are you looking to lose fat, gain muscle, or improve your health, or all of the above? Interested in working with me one-on-one? Stop spinning your wheels, because I offer personalized coaching where I can help you reach your goals, whether it be fat loss, muscle building, improving your health, or all of the above. I provide tailored nutrition, training, and supplementation advice, one or all of them together, with 24/7 ongoing support to help guide you every step of the way. You can email me at scott.mize@gmail.com. Click the link in the description of this episode to schedule your free consult call to go over your goals, answer questions with no obligation. Let's take your physique or health journey to the next level. This episode is brought to you by LMNT Electrolytes. This month, we're switching it up with an exclusive offer that's only for VIP LMNT partners, including Carnivore Cast listeners. You can now receive this free sample pack along with any regular purchase when you use my custom link, which is provided in the show notes or my Instagram link in bio. That's drinklmnt.com/carnivorecast, all one word. And as I said, I'll include the link in the show notes. LMNT Electrolytes are convenient, evidence-based, and delicious. And get yours today to help support the show. Thank you. Jeff Smith from Colorado Craft Beef is a co-owner with his wife, Kara. Jeff is a veteran of the cattle and food agriculture industries with a wealth of knowledge about the practices, supply chain, and economics of beef and other animals. Jeff has been on the show several times to cover topics around being a modern-day cattle rancher, supply chains, differences in online meat companies, and more. Welcome back to the show, Jeff.
How's it going, man? Good to see you.
How are you?
Going good. It's a busy time of year, and we've had some crazy stuff going on with the business. And I think last time we talked, we'd just taken down our own feed yard. So we're in the second year of that operation. And with some of the other stuff, we're up to about 30 employees across all the companies. So that's no short level of workload.
Wow.
But yeah, can't complain.
Cool. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about that. What has changed for Colorado Craft Beef in the last year, and what are you excited about for the future?
Yeah. Well, like we've been doing since we started, we're being creative. We're getting outside the norms of traditional agriculture in a way that puts us in positions that, quite frankly, I feel like we're leading the industry. Starting to think in ways that grandpa and other generations may not totally understand. And in that, we brought in some new partners, and we took the next step beyond the feed yard. And actually, we acquired our own harvest facility just this summer. So now the only part of the chain that we don't own is we don't have a cow-calf herd. So we still source calves from other ranches that we dictate health protocols to, but from that point all the way through the finishing and the processing and the fulfillment, we own that entire value chain now.
Wow, that's amazing. What does that allow you to do, product-wise?
Product-wise, what I would say is join the mailing list and keep an eye out, because there's a lot of product development happening right now. Actually, we had a new product come out just last week on the test batch that I probably had too many of them last weekend, just sitting in the building working, and found myself snacking too much. But it's clean snacks, so is it really that bad for you?
Yeah.
So there's been just a ton of expansion within the business, a ton of opportunities, and we've really expanded our network in a way that I'm unaware of anybody else in the beef space doing, especially coming from where we came from in a small startup mindset. So it's been really fun to found Colorado Craft Beef with Kara, but then also see that mission and that vision strike out into a spot that humbly, we didn't even know was possible.
Hmm.
And the whole process of acquiring the harvest facility and raising the funding to get that done. I mean, that whole process was 2.5 years.
Wow.
From stem to stern. But it's been probably the craziest way to describe it is it's been a lot of heartache in trying to make sure that what we're doing is correct. But the coolest part is watching at every turn, the business model that we've constructed, the partnerships we put in place with people like yourself or Dr. Baker or whoever, be approved time and time again by people that are in the food space or just love steak or, serial entrepreneurs that we can talk about shortly. To watch that exceptional level of business concept proof come through has been so fulfilling. It's been so fun. And then take that, to the generational side of the ranch, which is really why this company exists. It's been a roller coaster of emotion, but the coolest part is actually probably the scariest part for a lot of people. I've had people ask me like, "Man, aren't you scared that the deal's done?" I'm like, no. For the last 9 months, I've been scared the deal was going to evaporate.
Yeah.
I've been scared that, our proof of concept wasn't going to stick through. I've been scared that, funding was going to fall apart. You can read any number of business books about imposter syndrome. Like,
yeah,
oh man, do we really belong in the spot that we're in? And I believe it is that humility that keeps things organic. It keeps them fresh. It keeps them, very transparent with a level of integrity that, remains unquestioned. And that's been, some of those pillars that you just don't budge on. Really finding the right partners that respect those same things was really the biggest hurdle. And once that happened, man, it's been just a race. It's been so much fun.
Yeah. And what does owning more of the supply chain allow you to do in terms of like quality control and scale as well?
Well, the good news is the harvest facility that we acquired is actually the same harvest facility we've been using.
Yep.
So, we already had an aligned mission. We already knew the type of product that the management team at the facility put out. And luckily, we were able to actually get the management team to stick around. So we didn't miss a day of operations. The leadership team that's running that facility stayed on, and not in part, but in whole. Awesome. And, we're able to actually put these two regional businesses in a position that together we can do so much more than we could do independently. That, we're able to do things like vacation time and get more creative to treat people in a manner that they should be treated. And it allows all of us to just do business better. So instead of that famine mindset that really rules a lot of agriculture, it's allowed us to be a lot more strategic and, quite frankly, generous in what we can do. Because instead of having, the typical rancher mindset where, you have to watch every penny, and I totally understand that, it's allowed us to own enough of the supply chain we can flex through different company operations to allow for capital to land in different buckets or take care of people or do more strategic partnerships or, look at automation, look at new inventory systems, do things that as individual businesses you couldn't do before. Mm-hmm. And then from a sheer product standpoint for Colorado craft beef, we're able to help run that harvest schedule at that facility in a way that is, as we start to be more successful, we can control our own destiny. Because like you've probably heard from a lot of other ranchers on your show or just in the industry, the harvest slots that we're using today are slots we spoke for in 2021.
Wow.
So if you're growing your business by 40, 50, 100% annually, how do you begin to forecast for that?
Yeah.
A 10 or 20% miss on that forecast is still a massive difference in numbers.
Yeah.
So it gives us an opportunity to flex and then to also do what's best for both businesses. Work within the region to, harvest as many cattle as we can for the region, not just ourselves. So, it's that aligned incentives thought, rising tide lift all boats, or whatever other metaphor you want to use. It's given us just an opportunity in the marketplace to really consider the greater good and do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And is this something you see a lot of online beef ranchers doing? Is becoming more integrated, or is that pretty rare?
I think it's pretty rare. I see some companies moving that direction. There's a few in California that are fully integrated. What I see more in the direct to consumer, online beef sales space is I see a lot of people trying to use digital pixie dust to sell a model that really doesn't have a story. I see a lot of people sourcing beef and putting it under a new label, or sourcing product and calling it something else, or importing beef from another country and trying to call it something else because they're trying to capture the market. Because really, it's exceptionally difficult to produce all your own cattle. Then it's a even bigger deal from a capital standpoint to own all the cattle, now hold inventory, hire people. Because if you're a rancher, you're not set up to do e-commerce. You're not set up to do online digital marketing. You're not set up to do email stuff. There's so many different things outside of the purview that you have to be intentional in where you're headed. And that was something Kara and I did from the jump was, we're not going to sell 10 a year and then try to grow. We came out of the gates in 2018, fulfilling product nationally on the first day, which was not without its own level of investment. So, I say that hat in hand that we were in a fortunate position to be able to fund that.
Yeah.
And we did bootstrap it. There are some people that are like, well, the family ranch. It's like, respectfully, I love the family ranch and I love what it stands for. But Kara and I did it ourselves.
Yeah.
That was our way of going to the next generation. And quite frankly, in the ranching and farming model, that's a lot more valuable to other generations that you struck out and you made it on your own. And now you can incorporate some of the other processes rather than, well, you should allow me to go this other direction and fund it. That's not the same as building your own company from nothing. So it's very interesting. There's a lot of dichotomy of process and thought process when you start to look at generational farms and how they want to expand, because you could have a 2,000 head mother cow operation, but you sell calves. You might keep yearlings, but you're very seldom going to hold those cattle for 2 years until they turn into steak. And the cattle space is the hardest one to do, right? If you want to go direct to consumer with chickens have a 6 to 8 week lifespan to be to full maturity.
Yeah.
Pigs, if you're harvesting hogs, they're 4 to 6 months old. You have a significantly shorter capital turn.
Yeah.
The cattle industry is the hardest one, which is why the cattle industry is the least integrated industry in the protein sector in the US, because you can't continue to carry that level of capital.
Yeah. How long is it for the cattle industry?
18 to 24 months is typical.
Wow. Yeah.
So, calves are born in March of, 2023. The earliest they will likely be harvested is going to be June or July of 2024. More likely is they're going to be harvested in late 2024 when they're around that 18-month mark.
Yeah.
And man, when you start talking about that, currently a finished steer price on that animal is about $2,500. So now do that at scale. Oh, we only have 100. That's still a lot of money.
Yeah.
And then if you consider that when a lot of people want to bash the bigger producers or even, the packers, which that's a whole other conversation, they're harvesting 6,000 a day.
Wow.
Now do that times 2,500 head or $2,500 a piece. And when you sell cattle to the packers, they pay you the next day. The amount of working capital they are turning is incredible.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And so when everybody says we got to upend that system, I'm like, hold on, man. there
Yeah.
are mountains of money that are working to make sure that we can all feed each other.
Yeah, good luck.
Let's understand the system before we start to throw dynamite at it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a reason the economies of scale work that way.
Yeah. Well, and to give you an idea, now that we're in the harvesting space, the cost to harvest a steer and put them in a box, our cost is about 2.5 times what the big guys pay. Because we're not at that scale. We just cannot move that quickly. We are not that efficient.
Yeah.
So when people are like, man, your product is a little more, it's like, yeah, we're smaller scale. We have a smaller feed yard. We harvest, number of head per week, not number of head per day.
Yeah.
And that costs more. But with that, you get a little different peace of mind. You get a little different quality because we can age for 21 days, like we've talked about on other podcasts. Yeah. But every one of those steps outside of, our place, if you're one of our competitors down the road, you maybe have your calves, but there's 4 or 5 other places in the market that profits are taken that the rancher doesn't get. So when you're buying from a rancher, you're hopefully, if that rancher is good at math, that's a whole other conversation. You're hopefully helping their model to be more sustainable.
Yeah. Yeah. One of your strengths, Jeff, is you come from kind of a business world. And I feel like that has helped you survive so much.
Yeah. I refer to myself as a recovering private equity guy.
Okay. Yeah. That's a good, I think I am too, in a way.
Yeah. Well, the hard part is, and I mean this with all the love in the world for my brothers and sisters in ag, if all you've ever done is work on the farm,
yeah,
even if you did go to college, how broad is your knowledge base? How creative can you truly get? Hopefully you're listening to podcasts. Hopefully you're trying to find other knowledge. But I ran into that in my last corporate job. There was a ton of experience at the high levels of the company. I mean, you're talking some guys with 20 or 30 years. Like, I think the shortest amount of tenure of anybody on the leadership team was like 25 years.
Wow.
That's awesome. And they're very good at that business. But man, when you need to pivot or you need to get creative or you need to find another way, where do you find that knowledge? Where do you find that other data? You can't. There's no well that was ever drilled. And I think that's what's helped Kara and I, is we both came from corporate America. We understand what has to happen at the ranch, but we also understand that if you're going to ship with UPS, these are the different wickets you got to hit. Or if you're manufacturing boxes, somebody has to be functional. And that cross collaboration of multiple businesses is one of those things that you can't read. You have to live it. And that makes it functional in a way that it's hard to describe.
Yeah.
And to that, it's the same thing as Kara's dad, who runs the family ranch still. Man, you couldn't sit that guy down for a week with a recorder and get half the knowledge that guy's learned. You just can't. There's no way to impart the knowledge that makes him very successful.
Yeah.
So how do you recreate that? How do you take 50 years of experience and put that in a white paper? He's probably forgotten more about the cattle industry than we'll ever know. But it's through that just years of putting up with it that he's gotten there. And it's that creative outside the box mindset that I think keeps things moving in a way. And that's where I wonder, a lot of the people in the direct to consumer space, especially in the beef side, I don't think they're being as creative as they could be. We actually talk to competitors probably 2 or 3 times a month, helping them to understand, like, hey, if you're shipping from Tampa, Florida, oh, I want to ship nationally. Why? You cannot compete with me going to Seattle. You just can't.
Yeah.
Now you're in Tampa, you could crush it. You have a ton of people over there.
Yeah.
Let's figure out the way to make your model work best. I mean, my biggest strength is we're in the middle of the country. Yeah. We can hit a lot of places pretty economically.
Yeah.
And then depending on which way the freight's moving, we can catch those waves.
Yeah.
Well, if you're in LA trying to ship inland, that's a tough road to hoe because there's a lot of other freight moving that way. And then the hard part is the beef chain, especially those other producers will make a bet because they don't have the time to do the research. They don't have the time to understand the intricacies of 27 processes. And before they know it, they're either priced out of the market because they can't get efficient, or they're losing money and they didn't know it.
Yeah.
And that's been the hard one to watch.
Yeah. You lose a lot of money that way very quickly.
Yeah. I mean, I've said this on some of our previous interactions, and I audit my own stuff 3 or 4 times a year.
Yeah.
My own processes, my own pricing. Like, I'm constantly trying to make sure that I don't have holes in the boat that I don't know about.
Yeah.
But if we were a tenth of the size we are, I'd have significantly less time to invest because I'd have to be making money elsewhere.
Yeah.
Because the kids still got to eat. Believe it or not, they are very insistent on, regular meals and snacks at regular intervals. And there's not a lot of flex that we can have in that. So it's just a matter of resource and where you apply it. And that's what led us to finding the partners that we did.
That's great.
So,
yeah. So I'd love to talk a little bit more about those partners. What have been some of the impactful partnerships you've built, especially over the last year or so?
Yeah. Well, I'll kind of give the genesis of where the partnership came from. When we started looking into the harvest facility, we had some private equity types that were going to back what we were doing. But as we got deeper and deeper into that, coming from that space, I'm like, man, these guys are not going to help us sell any product. These guys are not going to help us automate. They're not going to help us optimize. They're going to be a check.
Yeah.
But that's not exactly all we need. And who do we find that's aligned with our mission? Who do we find that's aligned with our vision? Who do we find that loves what we do? I don't want to have to sell an investor. I don't want to be out begging for partnerships. And if our mission and our company is really doing what we think it stands for, we shouldn't have to work that hard for that. And luckily, I won't say it wasn't hard work, but the mission alignment when I first started talking to our partners was just unquestionable. So I actually listened to a podcast. I'm a big fan of Jocko Willink. I've listened to his stuff for years. And I listened to a podcast with him and Pete Roberts. And Pete is the original founder of Origin, which actually, shout out to Origin. I'm wearing one of their hoodies today. And they talked about they manufacture everything in the United States. They source their cotton from Texas. It's U.S. manufacturing through and through to, help forgotten communities to work in regions that don't offer jobs like you can. And the craftsmanship side of what they do, making hoodies and boots and jeans and jujitsu gis and all the things. And I listened to that podcast with Jocko and Pete, and I sent it to Kara. And this was like summer of 2022. And I said, listen to this. This is our story, albeit different players, different product, but the story is the same. Yeah. The number of people that told them you cannot manufacture in the US, you cannot compete, you won't find the craftsmanship, you can't do it, you're going to be too small, you're going to get crushed. I mean, it's a 3-hour conversation, and I'm just driving down the freeway and I'm going, my God, that is the same story.
Yeah.
And we've talked quite a few times, Scott, and I think you've determined I'm kind of a social guy. And luckily, I was able to get a connection to the guys at Origin. And I got on the phone with Brian Littlefield, who's one of the founders of Jocko Fuel and one of the very first employees at Origin. And we started talking, and that was July of 22. And springtime of 2023, we had a deal pretty much hammered out. And then we brought in the rest of the partners we needed to make the deal work. And in August, we closed. And, the partnership group is unbelievable. It's it's, you know, to use a baseball reference, you know, you're in New York, right? Murderers Row with the Yankees. We basically built Murderers Row of who wants to sell steak and support America. And we couldn't be more honored with who's on our team.
Yeah.
So, you know, the team members, I'm going to leave a few out, but the team members that are, you know, most known, Jocko Willink, Brian and Pete, so Brian Littlefield and Pete Roberts, those three gentlemen are actually the founders of Jocko Fuel. Staff Sergeant Travis Mills, who is a quad amputee from the 82nd Airborne, who is, by the way, one of the funniest guys I've ever met. Dave Burke, who is a Top Gun instructor, Marine Corps officer, fighter pilot. Leif Babin, who is Jocko's partner in Echelon Front. You know, just and some of these people are partners. Some of these people just like to work with us. And you know, what's really fun is you know, our mutual friend, Dr. Sean Baker, who has supported Colorado Craft Beef from our inception, partnered with us as well. Awesome. And man, it's been fun. Then we also have Chris Cavallini from Nutrition Solutions, a meal prep program out of Tampa. They do great work. The guy is shredded. You watch his videos, it makes you feel like a big sack of crap. But man, you know, the coolest thing out of every one of those guys, if it's Dr. Baker or Travis or Jocko himself, those guys are the same guys in person that you would expect them to be based on everything you've seen about them. And that's the level of integrity and you don't fake that. And that's the backbone of what makes Colorado Craft Beef what we are. And when you have that kind of mission alignment, you have that kind of social alignment, and you have that kind of work ethic that, you know, just doesn't falter. It's been fun. And so what's funny is I've had people ask me, well, man, you have to go execute on all this stuff. Isn't that scary? No, not at all. How do you not execute for Jocko? I don't think that's an option. And then you meet some of those guys, like you meet Travis, who Travis is a quad amputee. He got blown up in Afghanistan. And he is the most funny, positive guy I think I've ever met. And I'm like, man, if that guy can be that positive and that forward thinking and that supportive of our mission, and how do we not reciprocate that?
Yeah.
And the team around us, you know, from everybody, from the guys working in the harvest facility to our business partners, our bankers, like the synergy we're getting behind the mission and the movement has been so fun. And, you know, the carnivore community, we were on with the Meat Mafia guys last week. Yeah. And then we were on with, it's Radical Health Radio with Heart and Soil Supplements. We did their show when we were down in Austin. But then at the same time on that same trip, I went down to the B Team Jiu-Jitsu gym in Austin, got my butt whipped, and then went and did their podcast that night. Just because they're like, hey man, you do stuff with Jocko Fuel, you're in town, help, you know, come by, let's go do a podcast. Because of the integrity those guys at Jocko Fuel have and the network they have. It's so much fun to watch, you know, what started literally out of our basement turn into what it's turning into, while still being able to maintain the brand identity that we have worked for years to cultivate and maintain. It's just been so cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing, and I'm so happy for you, Jeff. And I'm not surprised that they've been so happy to work with you because of your integrity and the brand you built around that. I've been always amazed by how dedicated you are to like doing everything you possibly can for your customers, always making good on everything you do, making sure every part of your business is 100% honest and focused on quality and focused on the best product you can possibly produce. it all counts. It all adds up. And I think I've witnessed it. A lot of people listening and a lot of your customers have witnessed it. And, those things travel. And so, it's amazing. Like, you probably had a lot of pinch me moments, meeting these people and being able to work with these people, but, you certainly earned it. So you should be very proud.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. I had a really good buddy of mine. Shout out to Micah. He and I have been friends for years, and he's like my business sounding board. Like, and he was one of the first guys that heard we were working on this deal. And he goes, "Dude, you're going to do that." This was early. This is like our second or third conversation.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah, you're definitely going to get that done." I was like, "Man, I really appreciate the vote of confidence, but we'll see." And we got it done. And he and I were talking, and he goes, "How you feel?" This is like a month before we closed everything.
Yeah.
And I said, I waffled back and forth between, holy shit, we're going to do this, and holy shit, we're going to do this. Like, same concept, just a mildly different inflection.
Yeah.
But, to anybody that's scared of their dreams, their ambitions, or whatever, man, if they're not scaring you, they're not big enough.
Mm.
If it's not a little terrifying to wonder what you're going to do, and that doesn't, and I'm not saying entrepreneurship, I'm saying whatever.
Yeah.
If your health and wellness goals aren't a little bit daunting, are they worth pursuing?
Yeah.
Like in some of our past conversations, the amount of weight I've lost, the journey I've gone through with just that was scary.
Yeah.
And that constant drive to maintain that weight loss, with 2.5 years of just straight cortisol pumping through my body, right? Go out there and figure out what makes you tick. Go out there and figure out what's going to drive you.
Mm-hmm.
And, being a little scared, being a little apprehensive, that's good.
Yeah.
I think it was Joe Rogan said is like, anxiety is an inborn thing from when we were cavemen, because if you didn't have a little anxiety when the saber-toothed tiger came around the corner, you were just going to stand there.
Yeah.
So use that stuff to your advantage.
Yeah.
But, if life's complacent, and I mean, I know a fair number of people that make well into the six figures, they're anxious all the time. Some of that's self-imposed by bad spending habits, but not everybody can pull down six figures. Not every region allows for that. But, take advantage when you can, and don't overcommit, but still, own your journey. It's crazy. Life's a crazy thing. And then just this morning, I was sitting in a meeting in my office in here, and our nanny comes in and she's like, "Hey, we need your help in the house." And our nearly 4-year-old, Emma, she fell down and cracked her chin open, and Kara's at the emergency room with her this morning, or right now, like getting stitches. And our 3-year-old.
Jeez.
Yeah. And I'm like, God dang it, man. Like, you can't make this up. Like, there's just, and well, last Monday, like, it's pretty funny because I've had some people, "Oh man, it must be nice doing blah, blah, blah." I'm like, "It must be nice, man." Like, a week ago Monday, we had a fire at the feed yard. Like, and I was out there fighting fire from 5 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Wow.
Because we had some bales spontaneously combust, and the fire department's like, "Okay, it looks like you're safe." I'm like, "You gonna bring out another truck?" They're like, "No, we can't use enough water to put a hay fire out. If it gets real bad, call us back."
Wow.
And that's just a typical Monday. Like,
yeah.
So it's not cupcakes and unicorns. It's not without everyday challenges.
Yeah.
But man, the opportunities in our world today are so incredibly immense.
Yeah.
The connections you can make and the things you can build due to the connectivity of our culture is so crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's an amazing time. A lot of people talk negatively about how it's the worst of times. Social media is ruining everything. Things were so much better back then, but I think it's a spectacular time to be alive in terms of the access and the breaking down of barriers in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I heard a keynote speaker at a meeting earlier this year, and he was out of Montana. He was a logger, actually. He was a civil engineer, I believe. And he said, everybody wants to say how bad it is. And he flashes up a slide, and he starts it, basically, he started the Civil War. And he goes, so since the Civil War, which was arguably not a great time in American history, it's like, let's look at all the other things. The expansion west, and then you had the pandemic, and you had World War One, you had World War Two, you had the Great Depression. If we really zoom out and look at the last 150 years, things are not perfect. But I would argue that you probably couldn't find a time that they were perfect.
Yeah.
But this is the single greatest time in human history, in my humble opinion. While there are a lot of crazy things going on, I don't want to discount that. But man, there is a light that is shined on everything that didn't exist 40 years ago. Social media, for all of its negativity, is a exceptional tool that is being used for good in a lot of ways too.
Yeah.
And I think life's really easy to think it's bad when all you do is look at the negative things.
Yeah, I think on the point of challenging yourself and stress, I think there's a balance for everyone. Like people are depressed and unhappy if they're just surrounded by cushions and not doing anything interesting or challenging. But at the same time, like, everyone has a certain level of stress that they can live within and sustain and actually be productive. If you crank it up too high, you're just like, you're going to be worse at everything. So it's fine. And some people have a wider zone depending on how resilient they are. But yeah, I totally agree that you have to have at least one form of challenge in your life, hopefully multiple.
Well, what I would say is that bandwidth of stress you can take is a muscle.
Yep.
It's going to be built over time. A lot of my personal ability to deal with some of this crazy stuff is actually from my early days in my career when I was running a construction company. The amount of stress and just continual bombardment of nonsense was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And it kind of tempered me in a way that I'm like, ugh, that's annoying, but I'll deal with it. And I'm not saying that that's for everybody. I know people that, there's, all the different employees operate different ways. Certain people respond to certain stressors differently. And it's not right or wrong. That's just different. But man, if you weren't finding a way to push outside your comfort zone, maybe try that a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's an excellent message to end on, Jeff. Thank you so much for coming on today. It's always awesome to chat with you. Where can folks follow along and find you? As always, I'll have links in the show notes too.
Yeah. You can follow us at Colorado Craft Beef on all social. I think except for Twitter. I think on Twitter or X, whatever the heck they're calling it now, it is Hollow Craft Beef because of a character limitation.
Okay.
We're being a little more active on YouTube. You can actually, if you follow our social, we're going to be dropping the launch video with Jocko and the rest of the partners. That actually, I was supposed to have final cut on that on Saturday. And then we're going into Q4. So, a lot of holiday pushes, a lot of different trade shows, and a lot of different opportunities for you to buy gifts for people. We do ship nationally. Probably the biggest thing we've changed in our model, Scott, actually, we went to a free shipping model. So all of our standard boxes are now free shipping nationwide. So
amazing.
Yeah. And then, maybe we should re-up that CCAST code if you'd like to do that. We could re-up that for the fourth quarter. Probably about time I send you another box. It's been a while, I think.
I love that. Yeah. Always appreciate it. Cool.
Well, thanks, man. Absolutely. Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to the show. You can find The Scott Mize Show on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Please leave a comment, like, review, or share the podcast with your friends or followers. It helps more people find the show.